drive down the main strip, and here's the map. This is the main strip in Brimfield where the arrows are. So with this video is a little different than my other ones. This is all about traveling from Chicago to Brimfield, Massachusetts. There's a big flea market out there, and I captured a lot of video, and I put together 6 different videos in this series that'll walk you through our travels, our hunt at the flea market, and also what I found in postcards and other things along the way. A lot of people say, what is Brimfield? I mean, we're in Chicago, and that's over on the East Coast, over in the East, New England, Brimfield. So Brimfield is America's oldest outdoors antique flea market. Brings in hundreds and hundreds of vendors 3 times a year, spring, summer, and fall. Now, what I heard about spring, it can be a little chilly, and then summer, July, May, I think it is, can be really hot and dusty. So we decided to go in September, right? We were leaving right on the Labor Day weekend, and you'll see through the videos how the weather fared for us. Now, our travel is going to take us, we're leaving on a Saturday, and we need to get to our Airbnb place in Palmer, which is, this is how Brimfield's laid out. Here's a map of the flea market. On one end of the town, the east side, is Sturbridge. That's a bigger town than where we're staying. We're staying on the west side in Palmer. And Palmer is a smaller town, and it's not as congested when the people leave the flea market in there. And you'll see that as we go through the videos. But it's over 900 miles from our house. And we had to be there Monday by 4 o'clock in Palmer to check in. Now, when we go to pack and stuff like that, we're used to traveling by flying, different places and stuff. We always had to watch what we brought. But this time was a little different. We were taking our own car. My car could just be full of whatever I wanted, so I packed it full of stuff that I might need. And we brought some snacks and a few things like that. Now, staying in Palmer is like I said, a vacation by owner place. We didn't stay in a regular hotel or anything like that. This is just like a little apartment, and I'll get into that a little bit more as we go through the videos. One of my main goals on the trip is I wanted to find one white box full of select cards. I wanted to fill this box up with cards that I selected personally from antique stores, the flea market, or wherever on the trip, because I buy a lot of lots, and lately a lot of the lots have been picked through and stuff like that. So I wanted to see if I can find some hold the light cards, some really neat Santas, Halloween, and stuff like that. And that was one of my main goals. The other goal is to sightsee, get out of the house, break the normal routine, and just go and not worry about anything. Now, I did leave my postcard store on eBay. That was put on time away. It was still able to buy. People were still able to buy from there. And also on my toy store, I did the same thing on eBay, time away. Etsy, there's no option. You just turn it on or off vacation. We didn't do bad while I was gone. I think we sold something like 120 postcards while I was gone. Now, the videos are broken up in 6 different ones, starting with this one, part 1, traveling to Brimfield. And then we get into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is basically at the Brimfield Flea Market, walking around with the GoPro on my backpack, trying to capture everything I can. You want to stick through the videos. I try to put some timestamps at the bottom to guide you, but I did make some really good postcard sales. Talked to Joe from Mary Martin, different people about postcards. You want to kind of watch through those. And the funniest thing is you find postcards in the weirdest places. There was a restaurant, and you want to watch this video. It's the one about, I bought a postcard album from a waitress, or a waitress sold me a postcard album. We went to the restaurant. From the lady that we actually renting our Airbnb from, they have a really neat old train station in Palmer, and it's a restaurant, and the food was great. While we were there talking with the waitress, we said we sell postcards. And she said, I got postcards. I ended up buying a very neat album of postcards from her. and you'll want to check that video. I did that separately because it wasn't part of the flea market, but you never know. A waitress sold me food and a postcards. Couldn't be better. Now let's get on the road. Let's get over this stuff and let's get on the road and get to the good stuff. So we made it to Mentor, Ohio the first night, and we stayed there. And in Mentor, Ohio, there's a President Garfield, James Abram Garfield. Historical house and farm is there. And it was only 5 minutes away from where we stayed, so we got up kind of early, and when it opened, and it's run by the National Park Service, so it was free to go in and take the tour. But James Abram Garfield was born in 1831, and he died in 1881. He was the 20th President of the United States. He served from March 4th, 1881 until his death 6 months later, 2 months after he was shot by an assassin. So he was assassinated. And the tour was pretty educational and fun to walk through. The person that did the tour was really great.
By the same token, the windmill here to your left was constructed in 1894 under Mrs. Garfield's direction, and it replaced an earlier windmill that was simply less attractive. She wanted an attractive structure on the property, something that would befit the idea that a president had once lived here. So now let's begin to talk about James Garfield. He purchased a farm here in Mentor in 1876, 158 acres, for $17,500 from a widow, Harriet Dickey. The farm was run down, and in the 4 years that he lived here, he worked very hard on this farm, putting a lot of thought, a lot of heart, a lot of time, and a lot of his money into the property, improving the soil, improving the livestock, building new buildings, taking old buildings down that he felt that he didn't need anymore. My point being that he invested himself into this property, he invested his money. When he died in a fair amount of debt. You see on this landing.
It's a funny looking light.
All right, this is what I can tell you about the light. Mrs. Garfield saw it, Mrs. Garfield liked it, Mrs. Garfield bought it.
Then we drove to Liverpool, New York. We stayed in a Hilton hotel. They had an automatic pancake maker in the hotel. That was probably the neatest thing out of the whole stay there. But we got up real early the next morning, and we had about a 3 or 4 hour drive to finish up our drive to Palmer, which is close to Brimfield. And we were going to stop at a zoo-like aquarium, but we decided with the rain going on and stuff like that, we just wanted to get going. And we arrived a little earlier than expected, so we went over, found a store, got some supplies to put in our little apartment, and then we walked around and found a couple antique shops, and I did find about 3 dozen postcards. Now in those shops you always got to pay up a little bit, and I did. But there was nothing special. These were just normal cards that I would know would sold, maybe $5, $6 cards on there. Now the town of Palmer that we stayed in is also called the town of 7 railroads. And that's because there's just a lot of railroads in that town. And there's a spot over by the train station restaurant called the Diamond that a local lady told us about. But where we stayed here was the Lofts on Main. It's an older building. These buildings are older. So it's not like the 5-star hotels you're staying in. You're staying in stuff that's been there for years. But there's a door here. It felt very secure. You had to walk up the stairs. We were right on Main Street, and the parking was right in front of our building there. And as we were walking through town, we found a walkway to an old school. The school's not used for school anymore, it says. And there's a cemetery right by it. While walking to the school and the cemetery, I wanted to see what's going on. There's this little strip of land along the sidewalk, and it had some flags and it had markers. I thought maybe that was like a weird cemetery. But what it was is just a bunch of memorial trees planted for people, local people in town. But the cemetery was kind of unusual, and I got some film here of that. It was built on different tiers, and it was kind of tall. It was kind of built into a hill, and there's some older buildings built into the hill as well. Now I've included in part 1 here the first day, Tuesday, when Brimfield Flea Market was open, but it was just raining so bad. There's no way that we were going to walk around that place and really enjoy it. So we decided to go on the other side of Brimfield to the town of Sturbridge and look for some antique stores inside and stay out of the rain. Just shop around, you know, do the tourist thing and go to different places. We found a couple places. They didn't really have much. I did find an action figure for a pretty good price. But as you know, a lot of the antique malls are set for collectors, not really resellers. But we did see a lot of neat antiques, a lot of neat items that we haven't seen before, or just in better condition than what we saw. But since we were in Sturbridge and we had to get over to Palmer, we decided that we would drive down the main strip. And here's the map. This is the main strip in Brimfield where the arrows are. That's Route 20 that goes right down, and on each side, left and right side of the road, is where all the flea market vendors will be set up. So I kind of wanted to get our bearings and see what was going on. So we took a nice slow drive through there with the rain. Now with our day ending, we rested up, and on part 2, which is the next video, Wednesday, is when we were able to get to hunting and searching at the flea market. It's just way too much. We still, after 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we still did not see probably a quarter of it. We probably saw about a little over half or 3/4. Some of the shows we didn't go to there because they were not open yet. A lot of them open on Thursday or Friday, or they wanted payment to get in on some of the shows. They usually do it on the first day. They charge $5 or so, but we didn't do that. But go ahead and watch the rest of the videos at your leisure. Again, there's 6 videos in this series, and it logs our whole trip from Chicago to Brimfield and back. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in part 2.